Speaking of Paramount Plus,
Yes. Um, I finally watched Gladiator 2. The
Electric
sequel,
Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. Yes, the sequel no one asked for.
Except for Ridley Scott's bank account.
Yes, yeah. Well, he's only like 82 or whatever.
Right.
He's still. I guess he still needs the money. Uh, but um, but yeah. For those who probably don't know this about me, Gladiator is probably one of, if not my favorite movie of all time. And in my opinion, it didn't need a sequel. I thought it wrapped things up pretty well, but here we are. We got a sequel. Um,
Yep. Gladiator 2, The Search for More Money.
yeah, which unfortunately, it didn't make any money. So,
And yet Paramount still is highlighting a Gladiator 3. So
yeah, oh boy. Uh,
such good decisions Paramount makes.
oh yeah, yeah. Ugh. But yeah, that's why they had to get bought out by Skydance.
Yep.
But yeah, so Gladiator 2 takes place, I think it was 12 years after the events of the first movie. So it'd be 16 years after the death of Marcus Aurelius. Uh, and it's 200 AD. And if you know anything about the Roman Empire, that's when it was starting to fall apart. And we meet uh, Lucius, although he doesn't go by Lucius for most of the movie. He goes by Hanno or something along those lines. And Lucius was the kid in the first movie. He was the emperor, or the nephew of the emperor, Joaquin Phoenix's character, and his mother and the son of Lucilla, who's played by Connie Nielsen. She was in the first movie. She also played Wonder Woman's mom in the DC EU.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Hippolyta. Beware of any woman whose name is Hippo.
yes. Well, no hippos in this movie, but there is a rhino. Um, uh, but yeah, so Lucius is living. So we find out in a flashback scene that Lucilla sent Lucius away at the end of the first movie because the changing tides in Rome. She wanted to keep him safe, so he ends up in Numia. I think that's what it was, Numia, which is the last free city in Africa, but not for long because the Romans are coming to take it over. And the Roman forces are led by General Acacius, and he's played by Pedro Pascal. And during the course of the battle, Lucius's wife is killed, and he vows to take revenge on Acadius. Or am I saying that right? Uh, uh, Accius. Okay. I really I can't be bothered to remember some of the names of these characters.
From what I've heard about this movie, I cannot blame you.
Yeah. But we find out that I'll just call him. I'll just say Pedro Pascal. Um, we find out that Pedro Pascal is actually married to Lucilla, Lucius's mother, and so Lucius is then sold into slavery, and then put in a gladiator arena, and he's able to fight off wild baboons, and then he gets bought by uh, Macarini. That's Denzel Washington. And Denzel Washington in this movie, he kind of fills the role of that Oliver Reed's character in the first movie, where he's like the one who has all the gladiator matches and everything. But but his motivations are much more sinister than Oliver Reed's character in the first movie. But then we find out that Pedro Pascal is trying. He's staging a coup against the two emperors of Rome now, Emperor Geta and Caracalla, and they're brothers. And Geta is played by Joseph Quinn, who is most people remember as Eddie Munson from Stranger Things.
That guy's in everything lately.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he thinks Stranger Things for that, I guess.
I guess you could say that stranger things have happened.
Yes. But yeah, yeah, they so Pedro Pascal is trying to stage a coup, and then you got Denzel Washington, who's got his own plans going on that, of course, involve Lucius, because he tells Lucius that I can get you, Pedro Pascal, and and he basically just kind of works his little devilish hands around, working behind the scenes. Basically, that most of this movie is less about the gladiator battles and more about the political stuff, and I think that's where this movie really gets bogged down, because like for most of the first act, like after the battle in Nemea, I was kind of sitting there like this, like, okay, let's get it going. Come on, let's move it. Let's move it. Let's move it. Like, the running time of this movie is the same as the first movie, but the first movie had much better pacing. But then it really gets it's so weird. It's slow at first, but then you get in like to the end of the second act and then the third act, and then it just goes full board, and then you have a hard time keeping up with it. And this movie just really lacks the it lacked the heart, and it lacked the the spirit of what made the first movie so great. I tell people this all the time. Like, if you watch the first Gladiator and you don't come out of that movie loving democracy, there's something wrong with you. I did not get that sense from this movie.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just Ridley Scott becoming more cynical over time, or the mood of the people or other people behind it, or just, I mean, honestly, so I'm gonna say something that will make Daniel very offended. I have not seen Gladiator 1 yet, but I know the broad strokes of it.
Yeah.
I know that at the end of it, they go ahistorical and save the Roman Republic. So that makes it very hard to make a sequel of that movie, because if you're going to do the same plot line over again and still have gladiator matches, it means that they failed in the first movie.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it's very clear that yes, they did. And yeah, because they do the exact same thing. And they even have like one of the senators from the first movie pops up again in this one. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this guy, I mean, this guy would be thinking, we tried this a few years ago and it didn't work. What makes you think it's going to work this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least Russell Crowe's character wasn't alive to have to drink manatee milk or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
He didn't get disgraced.
Yeah, yeah. Although, so a few spoilers. It's kind of hinted at in the first movie, but they confirm it in this one that Lucius is in fact Maximus's son. That Maximus either cheated on his wife with Lucilla, or he got Lucilla pregnant before he met his wife. I don't know. Not really sure I like the implications there. Because the driving force in the first movie was Maximus wanting revenge for the murder of his wife and son in that movie, though. But
Yep.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and then and another little spoiler. So the one brother who's the emperor is cuckoo because his older brother says, "Oh, the infection in his loins has spread to his brain."
Oh, so syphilis.
Syphilis, yeah, he had syphilis, and so so the brother, with who's crazy, he appoints his pet monkey as his first counsel. It's just like, oh, geez.
Was it Caligula who put his horse on the Senate?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah, trying to out Caligula. I see.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah. But that was probably probably the part I liked about the most because it's just like, oh, okay, that's where we're going.
It sounds like the part of the movie that had some life to it.
Yeah, it was. Well, and I will say too, the Gladiator matches were very underwhelming. Um, like they had this, like the first one or the first big one they had uh, was the Gladiator riding around on a rhino, which I don't know if rhinos let you ride around on them, do they?
Um, actually, I've seen videos where if the rhino knows you, I don't know about letting you ride on them, but they'll come up and ask for scritchies
Oh,
and
okay.
just act like big dogs. So that's
Yeah,
kind of amusing.
yeah. But yeah, there's a scene where the gladiator is riding around on a rhino, which seemed a little odd. And there is a scene in there where they're showing one of the parties where like there's a rhino head and they're all like everybody's scraping off the horn because there's some people who think that rhino horns have like medicinal purposes, but they don't.
Yeah, it's just a big fingernail, people.
Yeah. Yeah, and the part that I was actually really looking forward to, but was very underwhelming, was so they actually did this in the Coliseum where they would fill it with water and reenact naval battles in there. And they did
Which
that
did
in this.
happen. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and they did that in this movie, but it was so just bland. Like it just nothing really happened with it. It just yeah, it's yeah. Uh, Stick with the first movie and just ignore this even exists.
That's the great thing about unnecessary sequels. They're actually pretty easy to write off.
Indeed, yes, yeah, yeah, and yeah, if you're curious, it's on Paramount Plus. It dropped this week. So, yeah,
Or don't. It only encourages them.
indeed, yeah.